The big oak door creaked open, and young Leo saw something that made his tummy flip-flop. His dad, Mr. Scott, was in another lady's arms. Leo felt a giant whoosh of angry and scared feelings. It was like everything he thought he knew about his dad just shattered. In that mad moment, Leo accidentally hurt the only person who had really tried to help his dad. Leo hadn't been home for 3 whole weeks. He was away in a super important city called London, finishing up a big business deal that would make his company famous. But a little voice inside his head kept whispering, "Go home, Leo! Go see your dad!" So, he packed up early, even though he wasn't supposed to leave for 3 more days. He walked through the front door, super tired but with a happy smile. He wanted to surprise his dad, Mr. Scott. Maybe they could sit and chat, just like old times. It had been way too long. Leo tiptoed up the stairs and heard hushed voices coming from his dad's room. He heard his dad taking big, slow breaths, then a soft groan, and then the lady's voice, gentle and kind. Leo's tummy felt all twisted up. He pushed the door open a little more. And there she was. Ms. Holly wrapped her arms around his dad. Mr. Scott's head was tilted back, his eyes were closed, and he was breathing hard. Their bodies were so close that Leo's brain just couldn't understand what he was seeing. He didn't see the 6 amazing steps his dad had just taken, the first steps in 8 whole months. He didn't see Mr. Scott's legs shaking, about to fall down. He didn't see Ms. Holly catch him like a true friend catches someone who's about to tumble. All Leo saw was that angry, scared feeling of someone doing something wrong. "What in the world are you doing with my dad?" Leo yelled. Ms. Holly spun around, surprised, her arms still holding Mr. Scott up. Leo's face first went pale, then bright red like a tomato. "Get your hands off him! Mr. Scott, please, I can explain," Ms. Holly said, trying to make him understand. "Explain what?" Leo's voice cracked like a broken twig. "You think I don't see what's happening here?" He gave her a hard shove. Ms. Holly stumbled backward, her arm hitting the bedside table. A little bit of blood appeared on her skin. Mrs. Evans, the housekeeper, stood frozen in the doorway. Other helpers whispered, "She's been alone with him every day." Leo grabbed Ms. Holly's arm. "You're fired! Pack your bags! Get out!" Mr. Scott tried to say something. "Leo! She was helping!" But his voice was too weak, like a whisper. The walking had made him super tired. Leo looked at his dad and saw how tired he was, how confused, and how easy to hurt. She's been tricking him, Leo thought. Miss Holly didn't fight back. She walked out without another word. The blood was still running down her arm, but she held her head high, like a queen. Inside, though, her heart was breaking. Not for herself, but for Mr. Scott, whose amazing progress had just been stolen away. Before we start, give a big thumbs up, click the subscribe button, and tell me where you're watching from. Because if you've ever tried your very best and someone thought you did something bad, this story will make you think really hard. Sometimes, good things happen because of the people we accidentally hurt. And what Leo is about to find out will change everything. It was 2:17 in the morning. Leo sat in the blue glow of his computer screen. His coffee had been cold for a long time. He'd been watching videos for 3 hours straight. The first video started super simple. August 15th, 3:42 p.m. Ms. Holly walked into his dad's room carrying some printed pictures of exercises. She showed them to Mr. Scott, pointing at different movements, lifting legs, wiggling ankles, balancing. Mr. Scott looked at the paper, then at her. His mouth moved. Leo couldn't hear the sounds through the old computer system, but he could read his dad's lips. "I couldn't even lift my foot yesterday." Ms. Holly's answer was super clear. She pointed at Mr. Scott. Then at the calendar on the wall, her face kind but strong. "Yesterday was yesterday. Today is today." Leo leaned closer to the screen. For 20 whole minutes, Ms. Holly worked with his dad. She was patient, steady, never rushing him. When Mr. Scott finally lifted his leg 3 inches off the bed, his whole face changed. First, he looked surprised, Then something Leo hadn't seen in months, pure joy. Ms. Holly clapped softly, smiled, and Mr. Scott smiled back. Leo's throat felt tight. He clicked on the next video. September 3rd. Mr. Scott stood with his walker, gripping the handles so hard his knuckles were white. Ms. Holly stood right beside him, one hand floating near his back, not touching, just ready to help. Mr. Scott took one step, then his legs started shaking like jelly. Panic flashed across his face. Ms. Holly moved super fast. Her arms went around his middle, holding him up, and she gently lowered him into his wheelchair. The exact way Leo had seen them today. The exact hug he had gotten all wrong. Mr. Scott sat there, his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. He was crying. Ms. Holly didn't say a word. She just pulled a chair next to him and sat down, gave him some water, and waited. After a few minutes, Mr. Scott looked up at her. Even without sound, Leo could see his dad say the words, "I'm sorry." Ms. Holly shook her head. She pointed at the walker, then at Mr. Scott. Then she made a walking motion with her fingers. "You will walk. I'm not giving up on you." Leo's hand trembled on the mouse. He clicked another video. September 22nd. This time, Mr. Scott stood and took 2 steps, then 3, then 5. His legs gave out, but Ms. Holly caught him. And when she lowered him into the chair, Mr. Scott buried his face in his hands again. But this time, he wasn't crying because he was frustrated. He was crying because he was so happy. Ms. Holly knelt beside the wheelchair. She took his hand, and Leo watched his dad say the words that would make him feel sad forever. "You gave me my life back." Leo stood up so fast his chair fell over with a crash. He stumbled to the window, gripping the frame, breathing hard. "Oh God," he whispered. "What have I done?" He pressed his forehead against the cold glass. Outside, the rain was coming down harder now. The world looked blurry. Behind him, the video kept playing. He could hear it in his head. The silent movie of his dad learning to walk again, learning to hope again, all because of her. And he had thrown her out like she was trash. Leo's chest felt tight. His hands started shaking. He turned back to his desk and clicked another video. October 1st. The camera showed Ms. Holly in the corner of the room, sitting on the floor, her head in her hands. Mr. Scott was asleep in his chair, super tired from his exercises. And Ms. Holly was crying. Her whole body shook with silent sobs. She wiped her eyes, took a deep breath, and then pulled herself together. Then she stood up, checked on Mr. Scott, and went back to sorting out his medicines. She never asked for help, never complained, never stopped trying. Leo sank into the chair. The next video was from 2 weeks ago. Ms. Holly's face looked thinner, more tired, but she still showed up, still smiled at Mr. Scott, still believed in him. Leo opened another window on his computer and found Ms. Holly's pay stub. And that's when he saw it. Only 40% of her usual pay went into her bank account. The rest was kept back, because she asked them to. The reason said, "Stuff and tools for helping patients, personal money." She had been paying her own money to help his dad. Leo's eyes got blurry. He clicked back to the video. Today's date, 4 p.m. He watched Mr. Scott take 6 steps. 6 beautiful, impossible steps. Watched his legs start to wobble. Watched Ms. Holly catch him in that perfect, helpful hug. Watched his dad whisper, "Thank you," and then watched himself burst through the door. Watched himself destroy everything. Leo put his head in his hands. "Oh God," he whispered into the empty room. "What have I done?" Leo didn't sleep at all. He sat in that chair until the sun came up, watching video after video. 8 whole months of videos. 8 months of Ms. Holly showing up every single afternoon at 3:30, no matter what. There was the day Mr. Scott threw his water bottle across the room because he was so frustrated. Ms. Holly didn't even flinch. She picked it up, filled it with water, and sat beside him until he was ready to try again. There was the time Mr. Scott's leg cramped so badly he screamed. Ms. Holly massaged it gently for 20 minutes until the pain went away. There was the afternoon she arrived with her eyes red and puffy. Clearly, she'd been crying about something, but the moment she walked into Mr. Scott's room, she smiled. She still showed up for him, even when she was sad. Leo's hands wouldn't stop shaking. At 6 o'clock in the morning, he grabbed his keys and ran downstairs. Mr. Jenkins, the family butler, was already in the kitchen making tea. "Where is she?" Leo asked, his voice rough and scratchy. "Where did Miss Holly go?" Mr. Jenkins looked up, surprised. I don't know, sir. She left around 1 this morning. Didn't say where?" Leo's chest felt tight. "Did she leave a new address? A phone number?" "No, sir. She just left." Leo ran a hand through his hair. "What about her things?" "Her room is empty." Leo turned and headed toward the guest rooms anyway. He pushed open the door to Miss Holly's room. Mr. Jenkins was right. Empty. The bed was made perfectly. The surfaces were wiped clean. It looked like no one had ever lived there at all, except for one thing. On the dresser, a small stack of paper receipts held down by a pretty rock. Leo walked over and picked up the top one. "Happy Hills Nursing Home Supply, resistance bands $47. The next one. Medical Gear Store, balance board $83. The next. Special Shoes, $126. Leo flipped through them. Dozens of receipts, hundreds of dollars. All of it Ms. Holly's own money. Underneath the receipts, a work schedule from Happy Hills Nursing Home. Night shift, 3 days a week, 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. She had been working 2 jobs, just to help his dad. Leo's legs felt like jelly. He sat on the edge of the bed, the receipts trembling in his hands. On the bedside table, he noticed something else, a small notebook. The top page had been torn off, but he could still see what was written underneath. He held it up to the light. "Mom sent $800. Should cover this month. Love you." Leo closed his eyes. She had been sending money home to her mom and still somehow found a way to buy special equipment for Mr. Scott. A soft knock at the door. Mr. Jenkins stepped inside. "Sir, your father is awake. He's asking for Miss Holly." Leo looked up. "What do I tell him?" Mr. Jenkins' face was kind but serious. "The truth, sir. It's all we have left." Leo stood up slowly, the receipts still in his hand. He walked down the hall to his dad's room. Mr. Scott was sitting in his wheelchair by the window, staring out at nothing. "Dad?" Mr. Scott didn't turn around. "Is she gone?" Leo's throat felt tight. "Yes." "Did you say sorry?" I tried to find her." "She's not." "Did you say sorry?" Mr. Scott's voice was quiet. Broken. "Not yet." Mr. Scott finally turned. And the look in his eyes, disappointment, sadness, something even deeper than anger, almost broke Leo in half. "She gave me everything," Mr. Scott whispered. "And you took it all away." Leo's hands shook. "I know. I watched the videos. I saw everything." "Then you know what you ruined?" Leo nodded. He couldn't speak. Mr. Scott turned back to the window. "Find her. Make this right, or don't come back." Leo drove to the address on Miss Holly's work papers. It was a small apartment building in Riverside, about 40 minutes from his big house. He knocked on apartment 3B. No answer. He knocked again, harder. A door opened across the hall. An old lady in a faded robe peeked out. "You looking for Holly?" "Yes." "Do you know where she is?" The woman looked at him closely. Her eyes got narrow. "You're him, aren't you? The one who fired her?" Leo's jaw tightened. "Please, I need to find her. She doesn't live here anymore. Moved out 2 months ago to save money. Do you know where she went?" The woman thought for a moment, then sighed. "She works nights at Happy Hills. That's all I know." Leo was already heading back to his car. Happy Hills Nursing Home was on the edge of town, a low brick building with tired-looking plants. Leo pulled into the parking lot just after 7 in the morning. Inside, the bright lights buzzed. A nurse sat behind the front desk, sorting papers. "I'm looking for Holly Grant," Leo said. The nurse looked up. Her face changed when she recognized him. "You've got some nerve showing up here. Please, I just need to talk to her. She's with a patient, and I'm not bothering her for you." Leo stepped back. "Then I'll wait. Suit yourself." He sat in a hard plastic chair by the window. The minutes went by super slowly. He watched through the glass as Ms. Holly moved through the hallway with an old man, helping him practice walking with a cane. Her movements were the same ones he'd seen in the videos, patient, gentle, focused. The man took 4 shaky steps and smiled. Ms. Holly smiled back, and something in Leo's chest cracked open. 6 a.m. came. Time for the shift change. Ms. Holly came out of the patient area, pulling her jacket on. She looked so tired. She had dark circles under her eyes. She froze when she saw Leo. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then she turned and walked toward the exit. Leo followed. "Holly, please, just give me 5 minutes." She pushed through the door into the gray morning light. "I don't have anything to say to you." "Then just listen." She kept walking toward her car, an old, beat-up Honda with a dented bumper. Leo's voice cracked. "I watched the videos. All of them. 8 months of them." Ms. Holly stopped. Her hand was on the car door handle, but she didn't open it. "I know what you did for my father," Leo continued. "I know you paid for his equipment yourself. I know you worked 2 jobs just to pay for it. I know you never asked me for anything." Ms. Holly's jaw tightened. "And now what? You watched some videos and decided I'm good enough?" "No." Leo stepped closer. "Nothing makes what I did okay. I was wrong. Completely wrong. You made me look silly in front of everyone." Her voice shook. "You pushed me. You called me a bad person. You threw me out like I was nothing. I know. You have no idea what you took from me." Tears filled her eyes now. "I gave your father everything I had, every afternoon. Every bit of strength, and you ruined it in 5 minutes." Leo pulled out his phone, showed her the bank statements, the receipts. "You paid for his exercises out of your own money. You worked all night just to pay for it." Ms. Holly looked away. "That doesn't matter now. It matters to me." Leo's voice got quieter. "My father won't talk to me. He told me to find you or not come back." Ms. Holly wiped her eyes. "Good. He's right. I ruined the best thing that ever happened to him." Leo paused. "I want to make this right. I'm starting a special place for people who had strokes and can't pay for help to get better." Ms. Holly laughed, but it was a bitter, sad laugh. "You think money fixes this?" "No, but it's a start." He looked into her eyes. "I'm putting $50 million into it, and I want you to run it as the boss of helping patients. You get all the good things, $250,000 a year. You hire your own helpers. You make your own rules." Ms. Holly stared at him. "Why should I trust you?" "You shouldn't." Leo's voice was raw. "But my father does. He wrote you a letter, asked me to give you this." He handed her a folded piece of paper. It was Mr. Scott's handwriting. Ms. Holly opened it and read it. Her hands trembled. "He wants you back," Leo said quietly. "Not as a helper, but as family." Ms. Holly folded the letter and pressed it to her chest. For a long, long moment, she didn't say anything. "Then I'll come back for him, not for you." Leo nodded. "And I have rules," she continued. "You don't question my choices about medicine. You don't get in the way of how I help people. And you tell everyone who saw what happened that I'm innocent." "Done," Leo said. Ms. Holly opened her car door, then stopped. "One more thing. Anything. When your father walks again, really walks, you'll be there to see it, and you'll remember what you almost destroyed." Leo's eyes filled with tears. "I'll never forget." Ms. Holly returned to the big house 3 days later. The west wing of the house had been changed a lot. Workers had put in wheelchair ramps, safety rails, and exercise equipment. What used to be a fancy drawing room was now a special place for getting better. Leo stood in the main hallway when she arrived, his hands in his pockets, not sure what to say. Miss Holly walked past him without a word. Mr. Scott was in the exercise room, sitting by the window. When he saw her, his whole face changed. "Holly!" She walked across the room and knelt beside his wheelchair. "I'm here." Mr. Scott reached for her hand, holding it like he'd been drowning and she was the air he needed. "I thought you were gone for good." "I was," she said softly. "But you asked me to come back." "Thank you." His voice cracked. "Thank you?" Leo watched from the doorway. It was the happy meeting he should have had with his dad. The forgiveness he didn't deserve. Mr. Scott looked past Miss Holly and met Leo's eyes. There was no warmth there, just a cold distance. "Come see what we've built, Dad," Leo said quietly. Mr. Scott nodded, but he didn't let go of Miss Holly's hand. Over the next 2 weeks, Miss Holly built a team of helpers. Dr. Mike Chin, a brain doctor who had been watching her work for months, joined right away. Then, Ms. Tina Morrison, a physical therapist from the Army Hospital. Mr. David Okafor, who had learned special ways of helping people in Nigeria, joined too. The team worked like a family. They laughed during breaks. They celebrated every little step forward. They truly believed in what they were doing. But between Leo and Ms. Holly, there was only quiet. He tried once, brought her coffee the way she used to drink it, 2 sugars, no cream. She looked at the cup, then at him. "I can make my own coffee." She walked away. Leo poured the coffee down the sink. The Foundation's first patient arrived on a Tuesday morning. Mrs. Margaret Chin, Dr. Chen's mom, 67 years old, with her left side unable to move after a stroke 4 months earlier. She rolled through the door in a special wheelchair, her face looking sad and defeated. "They told me I'm done," she said to Ms. Holly. "That this is it." Ms. Holly knelt beside her. "They were wrong." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "How do you know?" "Because I've seen what people can do when someone refuses to give up on them." Margaret looked at Mr. Scott, who was standing now, leaning on his cane, but standing. "That's Mr. Scott," Ms. Holly said. 8 months ago, the doctor said he'd never leave his wheelchair. Now look at him." Mr. Scott walked forward, slow and a little wobbly, but walking. He stopped in front of Margaret. "It's going to hurt. Some days you'll hate us, but we're not going anywhere." Margaret started crying. Ms. Holly handed her a tissue. "Let's get started." Leo watched from his office window as Ms. Holly worked with Margaret that first afternoon. The same patience, the same belief, the same refusal to say, "I give up." And he realized something that made his chest ache. Ms. Holly had been doing this all along. Not for fame, not for money, not even for a thank you. She did it because she couldn't just walk away from people who needed her. Even when walking away would have been easier, even when staying cost her everything. That evening, after the patients had gone home and the helpers had left, Leo found Ms. Holly sitting alone in the exercise room. She wasn't working, just sitting, staring at Margaret's walker. "You gave her hope today," Leo said quietly from the doorway. Ms. Holly didn't turn. "She gave it to herself." "No." Leo stepped inside. "You did, the same way you gave it to my father." Ms. Holly finally looked at him. Her eyes were tired, but something in them had softened just a little bit. "Why do you do it?" Leo asked. "Even after everything I put you through. Why do you keep showing up?" Ms. Holly was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Because my mother never got this chance. She had a stroke when I was 19. No health insurance, no money, just me trying to figure it out alone." Her voice wavered. "She never walked again. She spent 4 years in that chair before she died. And every single day I wondered if I'd done enough, if I'd tried hard enough, if maybe she could have." She stopped, swallowed hard. "That's why," she whispered. "Because every person I help walk is the second chance my mother never got." Leo's throat felt tight. For the first time, he understood. This wasn't just a job for Ms. Holly. It was a super important mission, a way to remember her mom. And he had almost ruined it. "I'm sorry," Leo said. And this time the words felt different, deeper. Ms. Holly nodded. Didn't say anything, but she didn't leave either. They sat in that quiet room together, not as boss and helper, not as enemies, just as two people learning to be human again. The phone call came on a Thursday morning. Leo was in his office when his assistant knocked. "Sir, there's someone here to see you. Mr. Marcus Davis." Leo looked up. "Davis? What does he want?" "He says it's super important." Leo hadn't seen Marcus Davis in 15 years. Not since his dad stopped doing business with him because of bad things about money. The man had built his business empire again since then. Davis Health Systems, 27 hospitals and rehab centers across 3 states. Davis walked in wearing a super expensive suit and a fake smile. "Leo, it's been too long." Leo didn't shake his hand. "What do you want?" Davis sat down without being asked. "I'm here as a friend. Your little foundation is getting a lot of attention, good attention, but you're messing with some very old ways of doing things. That's the whole idea." "I'm sure it is." Davis's smile got smaller. "But you're also creating problems. Your boss, Ms. Grant, she doesn't have the right papers, no degree, no special certificates. What happens when someone gets hurt? She's better at this than half the therapists I've met. I'm sure she's lovely, but legally speaking, you're in trouble." Davis leaned forward. "I'd hate to see something happen that makes the state shut you down." Leo's jaw tightened. "Is that a threat?" "It's friendly advice." Davis stood up. "Think about it. You're doing good work. Don't let one person who isn't officially qualified ruin it." He left. Leo sat there, a cold, heavy feeling in his chest. 3 days later, the news broke. Leo's phone buzzed with alerts. He opened the first link. "Troubled charity boss raises questions." His stomach dropped. The article showed a scanned paper, with official letterhead, from St. Mary's nursing home. A termination letter dated 2019. Ms. Holly Grant was let go from her job because of bad behavior with a patient. Leo's hands went numb. He scrolled further. Comments were already piling up. "I knew something was off about her. These people trick sick and weak people. Shut it down before someone gets hurt." Leo grabbed his keys and ran. He found Ms. Holly in the exercise room with Margaret. She was kneeling beside the wheelchair, helping Margaret with leg exercises. "Holly!" She looked up, saw his face. "What's wrong?" He held out his phone. Ms. Holly took it and read the article. Her face went pale. "I never worked at St. Mary's," she whispered. "I know. This is a lie. All of it." Her voice shook. "Who would?" "Davis?" Leo said. "It has to be." Margaret looked between them, confused. "What's happening?" Ms. Holly handed Leo his phone back. Her hands were trembling. "It doesn't matter if it's true or not. People will believe it. We'll fight it," Leo said. "We'll get lawyers. We'll." "They already believe it." Ms. Holly's voice cracked. "Look at the comments. They've already decided who I am." Leo's phone buzzed again. Another news story, then another. The lie was spreading. Ms. Holly stood up slowly, walked to the window, and pressed her forehead against the glass. "I've spent my whole life trying to show I'm more than my tough life," she said quietly. "No degree, no money, no official papers, just hard work and belief." She turned. Tears streamed down her face. "And in one article, they erased all of it." Margaret wheeled closer. "Holly, we know the truth. Everyone here knows." But Ms. Holly shook her head. 3 families already called this morning. They're taking their loved ones out. They don't want me near them." Leo's chest tightened. "We'll fix this." "How?" Ms. Holly's voice broke completely now. "How do you fix a lie that people want to believe?" She walked past him out of the room. Leo stood there, Margaret looking up at him with worry in her eyes. And for the second time, Leo watched Ms. Holly walk away, Not because she wanted to, but because someone had taken her good name and ripped it to pieces. Only this time, he wasn't the one who had done it. But he was the one who had to fix it. Ms. Holly stopped coming to the big house. She didn't quit. Didn't say goodbye. She just stopped showing up. Leo called her phone. No answer. He drove to Happy Hills. The nurse at the desk said Ms. Holly had taken a break from work. Where is she? I don't know, and if I did, I wouldn't tell you. Leo stood in the parking lot, feeling lost. Back at the foundation, the damage was spreading. 5 families pulled their loved ones out. The phone stopped ringing with new questions. Donors who had promised money suddenly said they had money problems. Margaret Chun was one of the few who stayed. I don't care what they say, she told Leo. Holly gave me my life back. I'm not leaving. But even Margaret's loyalty couldn't stop what was coming. The state medical board sent a formal letter. An investigation had started. They said Ms. Holly was helping people with medicine without a license. A meeting was scheduled in 10 days. If the board said they were wrong, the foundation would be shut down forever. Leo sat in his dad's study that night, surrounded by legal papers he barely understood. Mr. Scott wheeled himself in. He didn't say anything at first, just sat there in the dim light. I failed her again, Leo finally said. Yes, Mr. Scott replied quietly. You did. Leo looked up, expecting anger. But his dad's face held something else, sadness. I spent 40 years building companies, Mr. Scott continued. Making deals, winning. And you know what I learned when I had that stroke? Leo shook his head. That winning doesn't mean anything if you don't know who you're fighting for. Mr. Scott leaned forward. You're sitting here drowning in paperwork. But Holly's out there somewhere, alone, believing the world thinks she's a monster. I don't know where she is. Then find her. Mr. Scott's voice was firm now. Stop hiding behind lawyers and papers. Go find her. And when you do, don't tell her you'll fix it. Show her she's not alone. Leo drove for 2 hours before he found her. A small church on the edge of town. The parking lot was empty except for one beat-up Honda. Inside, the church was dim. Candles flickered near the altar. Ms. Holly sat in the front seat, her head bowed, her hands folded. Leo slid into the seat beside her, said nothing, just sat. After a long, quiet time, Ms. Holly spoke. My mother used to bring me here when I was little, when things got hard. Her voice was barely a whisper. She'd say, when people don't see you, God does. Leo's throat tightened. I keep telling myself that, Ms. Holly continued. That the truth matters, that God sees, but it doesn't stop the pain. I know. Ms. Holly finally looked at him. Her eyes were red, super tired. Why are you here? Because you shouldn't be alone. I've been alone before. I know, but not this time. Ms. Holly looked back at the altar. A tear slid down her cheek. They're going to shut us down, aren't they? Not if I can help it. You can't fight this, Leo. Davis has money, lawyers, power. So do I. Leo turned to face her. But more than that, we have something he doesn't. What? The truth. And people who have lived it. Ms. Holly wiped her eyes. Margaret and my father and every patient whose life you changed. Leo's voice grew stronger. They're going to tell their stories. They're going to tell the board exactly who you are. Ms. Holly's breath caught. You think it'll be enough? I don't know, Leo admitted. But I'm not giving up. And neither are you. For the first time in days, something changed in Ms. Holly's face. Not hope. Not yet, but the possibility of it. She nodded slowly. Okay. Okay. Let's fight. Leo felt something release in his chest. They sat together in that quiet church, candlelight dancing on the walls. And for the first time since the lie spread, Ms. Holly didn't feel alone. And Leo understood what his dad had been trying to teach him all along. You don't save people by fixing their problems. You save them by standing beside them when everything falls apart. The state medical board meeting room was cold and plain. 5 board members sat behind a high desk, their faces unreadable. Davis's lawyers filled the front row. 4 lawyers in matching suits. Leo sat beside Ms. Holly. Ms. Olivia Okafor, a lawyer David's sister had suggested, sat on Ms. Holly's other side. The board leader cleared his throat. "We're here to decide if the Second Chance Foundation has been doing medical things without a license." Davis's main lawyer stood up, showed the fake St. Mary's letter, and called a person who studies handwriting who said Ms. Holly's signature matched. He brought people who wouldn't say their names, who said Ms. Holly made them feel pressured, and talked about how Ms. Holly didn't have special papers. "This woman," the lawyer said, "has no degree, no license, no formal training. She's doing medical things with weak people, and this board has to protect everyone." Ms. Holly's hands trembled in her lap. Leo reached over and covered them with his own. She didn't pull away. Ms. Okafor stood. "Your Honor, may we call people to tell their stories?" The board leader nodded. The big doors opened. Margaret Chin wheeled herself in, but halfway down the aisle, she stopped, gripped the armrests, and stood up. The room went silent. Margaret took 4 slow, careful steps, then 4 more. She reached the witness stand, and turned to face the board. 3 months ago, doctors told me I'd never walk again. My insurance company said I was as good as I was going to get. They gave up on me. Her voice shook. Ms. Grant didn't. She saw something in me nobody else could see. And now I'm standing here. A board member leaned forward. "Mrs. Chin, we're not saying Ms. Grant had bad intentions." "Then don't say her results are wrong," Margaret interrupted. "I walked into Davis's place in a wheelchair, stayed 8 months, and got worse. I walked into the Second Chance Foundation in a wheelchair. 6 weeks later, I'm standing." She sat down. Next, Mr. Scott walked to the stand. No wheelchair, just his cane. He looked straight at Marcus Davis in the audience. "Marcus and I were business friends 25 years ago until I found out he was cheating the government out of money. I reported him. He built his business again, and now he's trying to ruin the one person who actually helps people instead of just sending them big bills." Mr. Scott turned to the board. "My son fired Ms. Grant because he thought she was hurting me, but she was saving me. And the day he threw her out, I wanted to die. Not from the stroke. From the realization that we punish good people because we don't recognize them." His voice cracked. "Don't make the same mistake." Then came Mr. Robert Walsh, 80 years old, a war hero. He walked to the podium by himself. "Davis's place kept me 8 months. Billed the government $89,000. I left worse than I came." He pointed at Ms. Holly. 6 weeks with her. Free. "And I'm walking." Ms. Okafor stood again. "Your Honor, I'd like to call one final person to tell their story." The doors opened. A woman in a business suit walked in. She looked professional and confident. "State your name for the record," Ms. Okafor said. "Rebecca Jones, former boss of marketing for Davis Health Systems." Davis's face went white. Rebecca pulled out a folder. 3 weeks ago, I quit. I couldn't stay quiet anymore." She handed papers to the board. "These are emails from Mr. Davis telling his team to make up fake evidence against Ms. Grant." She pulled out a small computer stick. "This has recordings of Mr. Davis clearly saying, 'I don't care if the accusations are true. Kill the program. Destroy the girl.'" The room erupted. The board leader banged his gavel. "Order." Davis's lawyers scrambled, whispering frantically. The board huddled for 15 minutes. When they returned, the leader's face was serious. "The complaint against the Second Chance Foundation is dismissed. Furthermore, we're sending this matter to the state lawyer for a criminal investigation." The room exploded with clapping. Ms. Holly fell into Leo's arms, sobbing. But outside in the parking lot, Leo's phone rang. Mr. Jenkins' voice was panicked. "Sir, it's your father. He collapsed. An ambulance is on the way." Leo's world stopped. Leo and Ms. Holly ran through the hospital doors together. Mr. Scott was in the special care room. Second stroke. Left side unable to move again. When they reached his room, he was upset. Monitors were beeping wildly, nurses trying to hold him still. "Mr. Scott, you need to calm down." But Mr. Scott fought them. His blood pressure went super high, 190/110. The doctor turned to Leo. "We may need to give him medicine to make him sleep." "No," Ms. Holly said. She pushed past the nurses. "Let me through." She sat beside Mr. Scott and took his right hand, the one he could still move. "Mr. Scott, it's me. I'm here." His eyes found hers, wild and scared. "You're safe," she whispered. "I'm not leaving." Slowly, so slowly, his breathing became regular. His grip loosened. The monitors started calming down. Within 10 minutes, his blood pressure dropped to 145/90. The doctor stared at the monitors, completely surprised. "I've never seen anything like that." Ms. Holly didn't let go of his hand. 3 days later, Mr. Scott woke up. His left side was weaker than before. The doctor said getting better would be slow and unsure. But when Mr. Scott looked at Ms. Holly, he smiled. "Told you," he whispered. "Can't get rid of me that easy." Ms. Holly's eyes filled with tears. "Don't you ever scare me like that again. Deal?" The news about Davis broke nationally that week. Government lawyers filed charges: cheating, making bad plans, blocking justice. Marcus Davis faced 20 years in jail. His hospitals were investigated. Hundreds of patients came forward with stories of unnecessary treatments, huge bills, and fake hopes sold for money. Davis' health systems fell apart within months, and the Second Chance Foundation grew. 18 months later, the big house's grounds were covered in white chairs. 200 guests, mostly foundation patients and their families. Ms. Holly stood in the bridal room, looking at herself in the mirror. Her dress was simple, elegant, real. A knock at the door, Mr. Scott stepped in, wearing a fancy suit, leaning on his cane. "You look beautiful," he said. Ms. Holly's eyes filled with tears. "You're really going to do this? Walk me down the aisle?" Mr. Scott smiled. "I've been practicing." She walked across the room and hugged him, held on tight. "Thank you," she whispered, "for believing in me when no one else did. You gave me my life back, Holly. This is the least I can do." The music started. Mr. Scott held out his arm. Ms. Holly took it. And together they walked down the aisle. Slow, steady. Every step a miracle. Margaret Chin sat in the front row, wiping tears. Robert Walsh stood up straight. Dr. James Chin waited at the altar, his face full of love. Leo stood beside James as the best man. When Ms. Holly passed, she met his eyes and she smiled. Not the careful smile of someone still getting better, but the real smile of someone who had forgiven. Leo smiled back, and for the first time in 2 years, he felt whole. 5 years later, the Second Chance Foundation worked in 11 states. 200 therapists were trained in Ms. Holly's ways of helping. Thousands of patients were given hope. Mr. Scott volunteered 4 days a week until the day he passed away peacefully in his sleep at 82 years old. His diary entry the night before he died read, "I lived through 2 strokes. Holly gave me years I wasn't supposed to have. I walked her down the aisle. I saw my foundation change lives. I have no regrets. This is what goodness looks like." The study where Leo first watched the security videos, the room where everything changed, became a special place to remember. The walls were covered with photos. Hundreds of patients holding signs that said, "Second chances are real." In the middle, a framed picture. Ms. Holly holding Mr. Scott after his first 6 steps. His face tilted back in thanks, her arms supporting not just his body, but his hope. Underneath it, a small sign. The moment that changed everything. October 12th. Ms. Holly stood there one afternoon, watching a new patient take her first steps in the exercise room next door. Leo found her there. "What are you thinking?" he asked. She watched the woman stumble, then catch herself. Watched her family cheer. "I'm thinking your father was right," Ms. Holly said softly. "What you leave behind isn't what you build. It's who you help build themselves." Leo stood beside her. He'd be proud of you. He'd be proud of us. They watched together as another impossible thing became possible. Outside in Mr. Scott's garden, flowers bloomed in the afternoon sun. And somewhere in every person who had learned to walk again, in every family made happy again with hope, in every second chance given, Mr. Scott's spirit lived on. Not in what he had built, but in who he had helped become.